It was an unusually cold Thursday evening in Zurich, the kind of night where the cold gets into your bones no matter how many layers you wear. I was sitting in our living room, the fire softly crackling, waiting for Anna to come home. She was late again. Over the past few weeks, her late nights had become more frequent, and her excuses were getting vaguer. When the sound of the door finally broke the silence, I stood up to greet her. Anna walked in quickly, her coat still tightly buttoned, her cheeks flushed from the cold. She glanced at me, her face neutral but distracted. "Sorry I'm late," she said, unbuttoning her coat without meeting my eyes. "Another client meeting?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, though my unease was growing. "Yeah," she muttered, tossing her bag onto the counter. "Listen, Lucas, I need to talk to you." Something in her tone made me freeze. I turned to face her fully, my stomach tightening. "What's going on?" Anna exhaled sharply, as though preparing herself for a rehearsed speech. "Martin's father passed away. It's been really hard on him. He's my colleague from the gallery, and a close friend. He asked for my support while he handles the arrangements." "That's unfortunate," I said cautiously, "but what does that have to do with us?" "I'm going to stay with him for a couple of weeks," she said, her words hitting me like a freight train. I blinked, certain I had misheard her. "You're what?" "Lucas, it's not up for discussion," she said, her voice firm, almost cold. "He needs me. You'll just have to deal with it." I stared at her, struggling to process the absurdity of what she was saying. "Anna, you can't just leave like that. What about us? What about your job? This doesn't make sense." She rolled her eyes, her patience clearly thinning. "I'm doing this, Lucas. And if you try to interfere, if you even think about filing for divorce, I'll destroy you." Her words stunned me. The air in the room suddenly felt thick. This wasn't the Anna I knew, the woman I had shared my life with for 8 years. This was someone else entirely. Someone colder, sharper, and more calculating. She brushed past me without another word, heading to the bedroom to pack a suitcase. I stood frozen, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. Who was Martin really, and what had happened to my wife? The next morning, Anna left before sunrise. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The tension from the night before still knotted in my chest. I replayed her words over and over, searching for any hidden meaning, any clue to explain her sudden behavior. But the clues weren't hidden for long. When I finally got up and went into the kitchen, I noticed her laptop on the counter. Anna had never been protective of her devices, but something about her recent secrecy nagged at me. I hesitated, torn between respecting her privacy and following my instincts. In the end, my need for answers won. I opened her email. At first, everything seemed normal. Work-related threads, a few subscriptions, but then I saw it. A folder marked personal. My heart raced as I clicked it open. There, in black and white, was the truth I had been dreading. Emails exchanged between Anna and Martin, filled with flirtatious banter, inside jokes, and references to nights they had spent together. One email in particular made my stomach turn. "Last night was incredible. I can't wait to see you again. The way you look at me. I've never felt this alive." The timestamp was from a week ago. The betrayal was glaringly obvious, but I needed more. My hands shook as I scrolled further. Their messages grew bolder, more explicit, detailing plans for weekends away and even hints about starting a life together. My chest tightened with each word. I closed the laptop, the screen going black as I stared at my reflection. The man looking back at me was a stranger. Hurt, humiliated, angry, but more than anything determined. If Anna thought she could lie to me and walk away without consequences, she was wrong. That evening I decided to track her down. She had mentioned Martin's address in passing once, describing it as a stunning penthouse in one of Zurich's most exclusive neighborhoods. It didn't take long to find the building. Sleek, modern, and almost obnoxiously luxurious. I parked a block away, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but I knew I couldn't sit idly by while my marriage crumbled. When I approached the building, I hesitated for a moment before pressing the intercom. A woman's voice answered, likely the concierge, and I quickly lied, saying I was delivering something for Martin. She buzzed me in without question. The elevator ride to the top floor felt like an eternity. My palms were slick with sweat, my heartbeat deafening in the silence. When the doors opened, I stepped into a private corridor. A single door stood at the end, slightly ajar, light spilling out into the hallway. I crept closer, my steps silent on the plush carpet. As I approached, I heard voices. Anna's unmistakable laugh and a deeper voice that must have been Martin's. My chest tightened as I peeked through the crack in the door. There they were, sitting close on a sleek leather couch, wine glasses in hand. Martin leaned in, whispering something that made Anna laugh again. Her hand rested on his knee, a casual intimacy that made my stomach churn. I pushed the door open without thinking. The sound startled them both. Anna's face turned pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Martin stood quickly, his expression shifting from surprise to anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded, stepping toward me. "I could ask you the same thing," I shot back, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. "Anna, how could you?" She stood, placing herself between us, her hands raised as if to calm the situation. "Lucas, this isn't what it looks like. Don't insult me," I snapped, cutting her off. "I read the emails. I know everything." Martin smirked, his arrogance palpable. "Then you know she's with me now," he said, his tone dripping with condescension. Before I could respond, he lunged at me, grabbing my phone from my pocket and smashing it against the floor. "Stay out of this, Lucas," he snarled. "If you don't, I'll ruin you." His words ignited a fire in me. My gaze darted around the room, landing on a hammer sitting on the coffee table, likely used for some pretentious art installation. Without thinking, I grabbed it. My hands were shaking with adrenaline, and the room felt charged with tension. The silence between us was broken only by the sound of my ragged breathing. Martin stood between Anna and me, his posture cocky, his smirk infuriating. He didn't see me as a threat, and that only fueled my rage. "Put that down," Martin sneered, pointing at the hammer in my hand. "You're not going to do anything. You're just a pathetic little man she doesn't love anymore." His words were calculated, each one meant to wound deeper. I could feel the weight of the hammer in my hand, the smooth wood pressing into my palm. For a split second I hesitated. Could I really cross that line? But then I looked at Anna. She wasn't afraid for me. She was afraid for him. Her loyalty, her concern was with Martin, the man who had destroyed my life. Any doubts I had evaporated. "You think you can just take everything from me?" I said, my voice cold and low. "My wife, my dignity. Not without consequences." Martin lunged at me again, but this time I didn't flinch. I swung the hammer in a wide arc, the weight of it connecting with his forehead. The sickening thud echoed through the room as he crumpled to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut. Anna screamed, rushing to his side. Blood trickled down Martin's face as he groaned, disoriented but alive. I stood over them, my chest heaving, my grip tightening around the hammer. "Now you'll understand what it feels like to be powerless," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos around me. "This is just the beginning." Leaving Martin dazed on the floor, I walked out of the apartment. My mind was already racing with what I needed to do next. A primal part of me wanted to let the hammer strike be the end of it, but that wasn't enough. Martin and Anna had planned to destroy me. Now it was my turn. Back home, I started by going through everything Anna had left behind. Her laptop, emails, and even bank statements. The evidence painted a damning picture. She and Martin had been siphoning money from the gallery, funneling it through fake invoices for event expenses. The affair wasn't just personal, it was criminal. I gathered every piece of evidence, organizing it meticulously. Screenshots of emails, copies of fraudulent invoices, even photos of Anna and Martin together that I had found buried in her files. Each document was a nail in the coffin I was building for them. Next, I reached out to the gallery's board of directors anonymously. I knew they prided themselves on their reputation, and the revelation of an affair and financial misconduct would hit them hard. I sent them a carefully worded email, attaching the evidence and encouraging them to investigate quietly. But my revenge didn't stop there. I reached out to mutual friends and acquaintances, sharing just enough of the story to plant seeds of doubt about Anna and Martin's integrity. People began talking, speculating. It wasn't long before whispers turned into outright rumors. Finally, I set a trap for Martin. Using an alias, I posed as an investor interested in partnering with his business. He took the bait, agreeing to a meeting. What he didn't know was that I had tipped off the Financial Crimes Unit about his illegal activities. When he showed up for the meeting, investigators were waiting for him. The fallout was swift and brutal. Martin's arrest made headlines, his empire collapsing under the weight of his greed. The gallery's investigation revealed enough evidence to terminate Anna immediately. Both of them became pariahs in Zurich social circles, their reputations irreparably damaged. Anna showed up at my door a week later, her face pale and gaunt. She looked nothing like the confident woman who had dismissed me so easily just days ago. "Lucas," she began, her voice trembling. "Please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said, my tone ice cold. "You made your choice, and now you're facing the consequences." Tears streamed down her face as she tried to plead with me. "I was manipulated, Martin. He promised me things and I was stupid enough to believe him. Please, I made a mistake." I stared at her, the woman I had loved and trusted, now reduced to a shadow of herself. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of pity, but then I remembered the threats, the betrayal, and the lies. "I don't hate you, Anna," I said finally, "but I'll never forgive you." I shut the door, her sobs muffled as I turned the lock. It was the closure I needed, a clean break from the pain she had caused. Months passed, and the chaos slowly faded into the background. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again. I found peace in the small things: early morning runs along the Limit River, quiet evenings with a good book, and the satisfaction of knowing I had taken back control. Anna left Zurich shortly after our last conversation, retreating to a small town in the south of France. Martin, on the other hand, faced years of legal battles and financial ruin. Their perfect love story had turned into a cautionary tale. One evening, as I walked along the riverbank, the city lights shimmering on the water, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened: the betrayal, the rage, the revenge. It had all left scars, but those scars were a reminder of my resilience, my ability to rebuild. As the cool breeze brushed against my face, I whispered to myself, "Sometimes destruction is necessary for new beginnings." And with that, I turned away from the river, ready to embrace whatever came next.